Is there any smoke to these Trae Young rumors? Should Bucks fans be worried? And what the Eastern Conference continues to look like as we get set for a matchup tonight in San Francisco against the Warriors on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I am Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day, each and every day, and for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcasting network in the industry. You can hear me every single game on the Bucks Radio Network. You can find Camille weekly on our Locked On NBA coverage and the Technical Foul podcast as well. Today's episode of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So, Camille, in the time that has passed since our last episode, this actually started to break when we were recording yesterday, but the reporting coming out from Shams that we've hit the end of the road for Trae Young in Atlanta and that they were exploring trade possibilities. A few people, and by the way, none of it sourced of, hey, I'm hearing intel and this is picking up momentum. I've seen some, the Bucks have basically kicked the tires, or the Bucks are an interesting team to monitor, but nothing that would insinuate this feels inevitable, right? Like kind of like it was shaping up last year with Kyle Kuzma at the deadline. We're nowhere near that. So let's get that out of the way. But there's been a handful of people who have suggested a Trae Young trade for the Bucks. And I mean, let's just start with this fit. I got my thoughts, but I'll let you start. What do you think about a Trae Young fit in Milwaukee?
No. I'm so thankful that no is a complete sentence, because no. I get the idea of why people would think Milwaukee should be an interested team in Trae Young, given the way the season has gone. They can look at the record and be like, hey, the Bucks clearly need something else going on. How about a guy who's a former All-Star, who can set up your offense, so on and so forth. But I don't think that's what the Bucks need. And if anything, we kind of learned from the Damian Lillard Giannis combination of what that transition is like, having a smaller guard that's a bit of a defensive liability, that's a ball heavy, ball
and even less gravity.
Yes, with even less gravity than Dame had, because Trae Young has not shot the ball at levels that we've seen earlier in his career. And honestly, even since some of his injuries, he hasn't had the same burst, the first step that we've seen in years past him, which is why I think his scoring numbers haven't been what we've seen in years past. So all that said, no. In addition to that, we just heard Giannis talk about how he likes having the ball in his hands even more. Getting Trae Young would take the ball out of his hands more than it already is. Not interested. And to be honest with you, he's making $46 million this year and has a player option for like $48-49 million next year. And wherever Trae goes, reportedly, he wants to go where he'll get an extension. I would honestly rather the Bucks continue to see what they have with Kevin Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins at point guard rather than taking the shot on Trae Young and that contract.
Would you lump Cole Anthony? I got with Cole here for a veteran minimum, opposed to giving up some assets and paying Trae Young as well. So how many times do you, and I don't mean this to slam the player here, it's just like you mentioned this, and you were one of the first that I heard really like pound this drum a couple of years ago with Anthony Davis and the perceived player versus what he actually is by the numbers and what you're getting offensively. This is the 8th season in the league for Trae Young. How many times do you think, and this isn't the greatest way to evaluate it, but how many times do you think he's made an all-star team?
Ooh, is it one? No, two, one, twice. I'm gonna go with twice.
4 times. I believe 3 he was an all-star. And then once he was an injury alternate. All NBA, he was Well, let's leave it there. How many times do you think he's been all NBA with 7 seasons under his belt?
One.
One time. Yeah. Third team all NBA in 2021, 2022. And again, like, this is, I'm not no way, shape, or form trying to compare him to Giannis, but this is a Hawks team that was essentially built around Trae Young, where you're definitely tossing him the keys and saying, go ahead, you take it off the lot and drive it. It's yours. And that's the production that you're getting from him. He's been relatively healthy. He does have some ankle issues. Their most recent trip, or whenever the Warriors were around, or no, I'm sorry, that was LaMelo Ball. But ankle issues have been an issue for him. But he's been a pretty consistently mid-70s games played player. But 32, 36, 34, 38, 33, 37, 34, and this year 30% from three. That is his career efficiency from the outside. He's only taken 6 threes a game this year. That is the worst efficiency of his career. 41% field goals, basically where he's been for the past couple of years now. It's sadly been off a cliff for Trae Young since the year after the Hawks lost in the conference finals to the Bucks. So it is very much a distressed asset that I think you're getting because of the size that you mentioned, and just because the output doesn't match what the name brand does really for Trae Young. But the notion, and we'll take a look at some of these deals that have been tossed around out there, that let's say the Bucks were of the point of, you know what, distressed asset, fine. If this is something that can help us out, even though we have massive reservations of Giannis and Dame didn't work. Giannis needs the ball in his hands. We've already got 2 point guards, and we've got a break in case of emergency that a lot of fans hope never occurs in Cole Anthony. We're good at point guard, but this offer is too good to pass up. So even if they were to do that, there is no scenario where there is any draft capital going from the Bucks to the Hawks. And everything that you're seeing with some of these projections, like you go to ESPN and like, here's some deals that we put together for Trae Young. The one that they put together for the Bucks, Kyle Kuzma, Bobby Portis, Gary Harris to make the salaries match, and the 2031 first round pick. Like, look, we're starting to hear Atlanta, not the pick that they're going to be getting from either the Bucks or the Pelicans, but Atlanta is kind of facing the reality of, all right, we're going to lump something in here. We'll give you maybe a pretty poor first round pick. We'll give you something to take on this contract, even though it's just the rest of this year and very likely one more with the player option. But no, there is no scenario where we would take on that contract and give you a draft pick.
Absolutely not. In addition to that, a problem that we've been talking about with this Bucks team is having size on the wing. And a lot of the proposed trades for Trae Young send out the only size that the Bucks have, playable size that the Bucks have, to bring back another small point guard into the fold here. And I don't even like what some of those lineup combinations in my mind will look like without having some of those bigger players out there, because the Bucks already have struggled throughout times in this season with guarding bigger wing players. They've struggled at times this season on the glass, as we have seen. So nothing about the Trae Young addition helps with the problems that we have seen so far with the Milwaukee Bucks this season. I don't think, at least.
All right. So I have a feeling most of the viewers and listeners are aligned, but not going to get the sign off from either of us on any Trae Young for the reasons that we went over. Some other ones that we'll get to as well. Some more changes in the Eastern Conference with the games that were played on Monday night, and a preview of a matchup that the Bucks have coming up later on tonight, late night basketball against the Warriors. So we'll dig into those coming up after this. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. It's your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. You open the FanDuel app during happy hour and it brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The perfect timing, right before the games, right before the weekend starts. Add that extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sports book partner of the NBA. So the last thing here on Trae Young, Camille, the Hawks right now are a negative 6.8 net rating in the minutes that Trae Young has been on the floor. Offense has been good at 122.9, but if your offense is good and you have a negative net rating by that much, that tells you something about the defense. And this is over 600 possessions too, so this isn't small sample size. A 129.3 defensive rating with Trae Young on the court, which would be the worst in the league by quite a bit. And again, we saw last year and the year prior to that, there is only so much you can do when you have one of those guys that can be picked at defensively, and especially at that position. When he's been off the floor, the defense goes from 129 plus to 114.3. So it just shows you that's a mediocre, right? League average defense is what they've been, a team that has personnel for it, but it's been that bad with him on the court. So these are always difficult spots for me to talk about potential trades for guys. And like, I want no part of this guy. And then, hey, 2 weeks later, we're here interviewing the guy. Hey, welcome to Milwaukee. Great to have you here. But you're going to have a damn near impossible time to convince me there is a fit for Trae Young here. Where that's, I don't know. And, similar to the Giannis conversation that we had, again, for very different reasons, it's going to be fascinating to me to see what happens there. We heard the Wizards were a name that popped up, which frankly makes sense, right? Like you kind of need something like that. Brooklyn would make sense to me as well. If, all right, let's get this guy and see if we can capture lightning in a bottle and then continue to build around him. But what we did here is there's some rumblings Atlanta's going to have to include draft capital, which again makes it ridiculous to insist or suggest the Bucks would include any picks. But just also finding the right fit for him. Let's say Atlanta works out a deal and trades him, let's say, to Washington. The ripple effects are what's interesting to me, because I've talked to a few people in the last 10 days or so that were very much on the side of, I think this is inevitable, and I think a trade is probably going to happen, if not by the deadline, sometime this summer with the Bucks and with their best player. This group of people that I've talked with about that has started to soften in the last, 2 weeks, 10 days. And like, you know what? I don't know if it's going to happen now based on some things that we've overheard and just the outlook of the league and looking at the landscape for these trades. I don't know where the fit is. Yeah. And let's say the Hawks make a Trae Young trade where they have to give up, again, not that marquee pick, but they have to give up some draft capital to get off of Trae Young's contract. I don't know how motivated Atlanta is going to be to say, okay, now we're going to give up the marquee draft pick. Like if you're doing that, you're resetting things where you're saying Jalen Johnson is our star. We'd really like to develop Zachary Risachet even more and see if there's something there. Step two is probably a coaching change if this continues to be 500, but we're not giving up, Jalen Johnson or any of those other picks just to get off of that deal. Like, let's try to win with this group and add what could be the number one pick to this current roster. And if that's the case, if the Knicks continue to do what they're doing, and did I get fooled by the internet? Did James Dolan the other day basically say, so here's the deal.
Yeah, he said, we're good. We don't need any trades. We like who we have in our locker room as they're on a 4-game losing streak.
So, yes, I didn't see the exact quote. I just saw the gist of it. And for those that are like, what are you guys talking about? The insinuation was like Giannis and a Giannis trade, and James Dolan basically saying like, no, we're good. We got like the group that we got here, and we think we can win with them. I didn't see how the question was phrased, but if Giannis's name specifically was mentioned, even by the reporter, how is that not tampering? I think that's going to be the first thing that Bucks fans would point to, given, well, we got fined and levied and lost a draft pick for saying we're going to sign our own guy. But nonetheless, let's say the Knicks really are out. Like one by one, you start to get through these teams and say, yeah, the reality might be sinking in too of even if this year is frustrating and not what you think and hoped it would have been, your best route may still be here to say, okay, we're starting to figure some things out. We're getting healthy. We need the sample size to see how does this work with Ryan, with KPJ, with you, with Miles, with this group, and finding what we can carry into the next season. And then also next season, we still are below those aprons.
Yeah.
And we, as of draft night, could trade 3 first-round draft picks.
That makes a lot of sense to me as well on the Giannis front of things, where it's like, hey, as you look around the market and see what's developing, Milwaukee might end up being that best place for you. Now, when you mentioned the ripple effects around Trae Young, I know some people were saying, like, why do people like the Washington fit for Trae Young so much? It's like, it's a young team. They just kind of need someone to help set them up. Like, I can imagine Alex Sarr, who's already been taking steps forward in his career so far. You put him with a point guard that can really set him up, get him some easy buckets. I could see that working out for him. And just really, I mean, CJ McCollum would be the guy in Washington going back out to Atlanta in this trade, and he's an expiring deal. Yeah. So that's a benefit for Atlanta too, because you get this money off of your books for next season while you have presumably a high draft pick. That's either going to be the Bucks or the Pelicans pick, plus, whatever else you get. Now, for Washington, I think that if they do make this move, it would be more of like when Toronto got Brandon Ingram last season, where it's like, we're kind of doing this more than anything for next year. Like, we kind of still want this year to be tankerific. So, but we see a future here where this fit could actually work. So we're going to really slow roll your adaptation to this team going forward. And then that would make Washington interesting next year, because they were a team, if I remember correctly, that are projected to have a lot of cap space next year as well. Now, absorbing Trae Young changes some of that math, but you also have Chris Middleton coming off the books as well, which is part of that calculus. So Washington could be interesting for that. But as for the Bucks here, again, no to Trae Young. And ultimately for Giannis, I think that what the Bucks have at its core is interesting enough to be like, well, what could we do this summer? I could see this summer for Giannis really being that swing piece of like, okay, we got through this season. However, this season continues to go, if they are showing real signs of growth on this road trip and they're turning a corner, we will see how that finishes, come April, May of this year. But the Bucks are going to have some resources, and we know John Horst can get very creative when it comes on finding ways to add talent to this team. So I love to hear that the rumblings are getting a bit quieter around Giannis and his desire to leave Milwaukee, at least before the trade deadline, at the very least before the trade deadline this year. The summer, of course, is going to be loud again, but I think come summertime, if Giannis is still here, which if I had to bet money, I would say he does not get traded at the trade deadline. I think the Bucks can put together some things that kind of are really interesting, especially given how the Eastern Conference is shaping up, where it's like, it could really be any team's go if you are able to build something that you feel confident in.
All right. The cap situation for the Bucks and a couple other teams, since you referenced it, we'll get into some of those numbers. And then also talk a little bit about what comes up later tonight with the Golden State Warriors and what happened to the Warriors game on Monday nights and why you're going to be getting a very agitated version of the Warriors. So we'll dig into that coming up after this. Well, let's be real. Managing your finances can often feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you may have forgotten about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all of your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down those hidden fees? Well, that's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You'll be shocked to see how much Rocket Money can actually show you you're paying for those monthly subscriptions or food takeout. Any of those things it's easy to forget about, they track it down. You may have completely forgotten about it. Well, they save you the money. It tracks all of those subscriptions, lets you cancel them within the app. Just takes a few taps to do so. So no more hunting down those customer service numbers. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked on. That is rocketmoney.com/locked on. rocketmoney.com/locked on. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or just into player projections for the first time, trying something new can feel like a challenge. But with Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure football matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never slows down, and Prize Picks lets you stay in control. It's the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections. No drafts, no waiting. Just pick more or less and play your way. Getting started on Prize Picks is quick and simple. The app is super easy to navigate, makes watching games more engaging, especially when you're following individual player performances. They have options like Flex Play, where you can still get paid even if one pick misses. And the new early payouts feature is a game changer. If a player starts hot, you can cash out before the game ends. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So the teams that, just to wrap that part of it up, that are projected to have the most money next this upcoming offseason. The Wizards are projected to have the most. The Utah Jazz are just under 50 million. Lakers are in that camp as well. The Chicago Bulls and the Brooklyn Nets, like those are your heavy hitters in terms of cap space this upcoming offseason. And for reference, the Bucks are not projected, unless they have something else up their sleeves, they're not projected to be a cap space team, but they are well under any of the aprons and the tax as well. As of this moment, they have a 179 projected salary for players on contract here, and that's with 12 guys too. So at worst, you'd have to add 2 more, and that's assuming guys work out some deals and pick up those options, or you work out extensions off of the declines for that group. But the tax figure, first apron is $210 million, second is $223, and the tax is $201 million. So Bucks aren't going to be a tax team for 2 years in a row, which is huge to kind of cleanse yourself and avoid that repeater tax. Yeah, but it gives you more flexibility to say, okay, we can take in more money than we're sending out in a trade because we're not beholden to the second apron. We're not even locked in at the first apron team. So you have that. You have the 3 picks on the night of the draft, as we mentioned, and other, options that you can use as well, like the exceptions, the biannual and things like that, the non-tax mid-level you can pay as well. So they're going to have those to work with in addition this offseason. I think the big piece of all of this is not like punting on this season per se, because as we've mentioned, the Eastern Conference, it is what it is. And as we talked about, the conference continues to change, Camille. Boston is now number 2 in the East. And they, like, Jason Tatum, everything we've heard, we laughed at early, but Jason Tatum is going to come back, and now it makes sense. They're 3.5 games back of the Pistons, the second best record in the East, and then you look around, Hawks lost again. They have 21 losses. The Bucks just have 20. The Bulls have 19 losses. So you are now in that spot where you're just a game back in the loss column of the Bulls, and you're in front of the Hawks. Like, I saw a few of the comments, and I get it. And yes, what the expectations were and where this group has been, we should laugh at it. But to say, man, we're really talking about you're almost the 10 seed and you're that close. Like, yeah, well, the season didn't go as hoped so far. But yes, at this point, that's what we're talking about, because look, a good week here and a good road trip.
Mm-hmm.
You leave this trip saying, hey, the Bucks are suddenly 9th and not that far back of the Cavs for 8th in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and this is the Bucks team that has not yet played this season, the Hawks or the Magic, two teams that are ahead of them in the standings. So, like, you're going to have an opportunity to make up some ground in an additional way by playing some of the teams that are ahead of you still. So there's opportunity still in front of the Bucks to be able to make a run and move up in the standings in the Eastern Conference. It just comes down to what we have been talking about for weeks. No, months now with this team, which is like, can you just start stacking these performances and not have it be so inconsistent where one game it's like, hey, y'all just beat the Celtics, this is an incredible performance, and then the next game you're like, how did y'all just lose to the Wizards, or whatever the case may be. Just finding that consistency here in the season to be able to actually stack wins. Can we get the first real win streak of the season at some point here? Like, can we win 3 games in a row? Can you continue to stack? And if they can, they're going to be in really good shape to make some noise and be part of the playoff picture as the season comes to a close. And as we've mentioned, next game in front of them is a Warriors team that, after losing the way that they did to the Clippers, where Steve Kerr gets ejected from the game, Draymond Green hurts his ribs, turns an ankle, still plays through it. It's just a physical game. Steph Curry's frustrated. It's a loss on the record for the Warriors that I'm sure they're going to want back. And now you're going into Golden State with a team with that type of energy right now. So the Bucks are going to have to be ready to play. But as we mentioned, the Warriors are little. And that was one thing I noticed watching them in that Clippers game, where it's like they don't have like any size out there right now. On cleaning the glass, they have the 22nd ranked offense, which is so surprising to me, and the 7th ranked defense in the league. But if you look at their numbers actually over the last 2 weeks, it looks a little bit different. They're more middle of the pack there for both offense and defense over the last 2 weeks. 19th in offense, 18th in defense there. And the turnover rate, like, this can be a game, I think, that could be really advantageous for a Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, guys who get their hands in passing lanes, really active. The Warriors are going to give you an opportunity to get the ball from them, and the Bucks can really make some hay with that, in addition to their size, I think, in this game against the Warriors.
Yeah, not that he is huge, but they've dusted off Trace Jackson Davis again. That's the extent of their size, and Al Horford as well. No injury report submitted for either of those teams yet as we record this on Tuesday night, so we'll see early Wednesday what it's looking like for guys like Draymond. I would imagine, given what we saw in Steve Kerr's ejection, probably going to be a favorable whistle for the Warriors on Wednesday night later on tonight. So you'll have that to look forward to and deal with for this Bucks team. But again, it's a winnable game. Yeah. And I will go as far as to say, Camille, I do expect them to win this game in San Francisco. And maybe we can cut to, on Thursdays or Fridays show, we can actually reenact the meme and we can actually start to paint the clown makeup on our faces during this episode if things don't go as planned. But I do think they're going to win this game because of their size and some of the struggles that the Warriors are going to be facing in terms of matchup. And then, like we said, if you can do that, then you have to approach with no let up and say, okay, it's not a given, but we're going to be facing a Nuggets team that's also small, and we think we're going to be able to do some of these things against Denver as well. Let's continue to carry that through, and maybe we can get greedy and show some things in Los Angeles too. But if you do take care of business in San Francisco, this all of a sudden sets up to be a very, very excellent trip. And I say too, Camille, it was largely a joke and jest. The title and the thumbnail of yesterday's show of "Are the Bucks back?" Like, we're not suggesting. I've seen enough. They're back, right? Yeah. But if you go 3-1 on this road trip, and even though it's the Kings and it's the Warriors that are undersized, it's the Nuggets without Jokic, it's still winning on the road on the West Coast. And if you do that, it's not going to convert everyone, but that's the okay. Now I'm listening and I'm willing to entertain it a little bit more.
Exactly. And as we've seen this season as well, it's going to be important for the Bucks to get off to these hot starts and not let other teams kind of feel confident in their way up. Like we just saw the Nuggets, the super shorthanded Nuggets, with only 9 active players, not one of them being a projected starter that they've had so far this season, go into Philly and beat Philly in overtime last night. One of the craziest games I've watched in a while, to see these backups and guys who don't get much playing time taking it to Maxey and Embiid and Edgecombe, and just a great game there. So like you can't overlook anyone. I mean, we just saw the Hornets give the Thunder one of their biggest losses at home in like the history of the franchise. So anything can happen.
Hate to see it.
Yeah, the Thunder 6-6 over their last 12 after a 24-1 start. So again, this is why you play the games. Like a couple of weeks ago, everyone was talking, oh, well, there's no point even playing the Thunder. They're just so good.
It's inevitable. They're going to win 75.
Yeah, you never know how things are going to shake out, which is again why it's like for the Bucks, keep the course, take it one game at a time, carry water, chop wood, and just try to continue to dig yourself out of the hole that you've created, because there is space and opportunity if you can start playing right to really make some noise. So hopefully we see that carry over in Golden State tomorrow. I wish Snoop Dogg was going to be on commentary for this game as well, but I guess we can't be that lucky to get him twice in the same week.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't get to experience any of that, by all means, track it down. It was very polarizing among Clippers fans who, hey, this is the Lakers fan and this is enough of pro Warriors propaganda. But it took a while of like, wait, is that? Because I only watched the second half of that game and like, is that Snoop Dogg? And then you assumed he's there to promote something and he'll be here for a couple minutes. Nope. Entire second half that he's there calling the game.
I was entertained, especially during the Steve Kerr ejection.
Oh, okay.
I had to like bookmark that. That was one of the funniest things I've heard in quite some time. More Snoop on the broadcast. I'm a fan of it.
All right. A chance to start to keep pushing that ball up the hill here. And it is a winnable game in San Francisco against the Warriors. If you can win this and start the road trip with 2 straight wins, then we're starting to pick up some momentum here. And not only that, Camille, then we finally got a win streak on the season, that it's finally here. We'll have the post-game show. The results are dependent on who's actually doing it. But if the Bucks win, you'll get your favorite version of Camille and Frank. If it goes rougher than that, it's probably going to be Camille and I getting it to you on Thursday morning. But that's going to be our next show, is the post-game recapping the Bucks and the Golden State Warriors. Thanks as everyone for tuning in today to the show. The post-game recap is your next episode. And never miss an episode when you join the Everydayer Club. It is built for you. You get Locked On Bucks ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and so much more. You can find the link to sign up and join the club in the episode description of today's show. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make that your second listen of the day with NBA Game Nights on Locked On NBA. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.